Hi, my name is Andrew Miller, and I'm going to be talking to you today about some research done in partnership with Anna Cherenshchykova. This was part of her master's thesis work. And in this research, we were trying to understand what are the sociotechnical design opportunities for pervasive technologies in the context of families getting better sleep. And our motivation for this study was really that getting enough sleep and getting high quality sleep is really crucial. And this is especially true for families with young children. And we know a lot about how technology can help people track sleep as individuals, but we don't really know very much about how pervasive health technologies might support family level sleep. And so what we wanted to do with this study was to understand how do families currently practice sleep? What opportunities can we gain from studying them, and what are the barriers that they face? And to do so, we conducted an interview study with 10 families in the Indianapolis area who have young kids. And from this interview study, we're able to provide some formative design dimensions and implications for family-based sleep technologies, and also some opportunities for future research. There is not a lot of related work in family sleep technologies specifically, although there has been some recent emerging work. But we are able to draw on work in the pervasive sleep tracking technology world. So specifically a lot of work by Kyung Cho et al. Studying how do we sense sleep, what does it mean to sense sleep, and how do we help people track sleep. And then when we're looking at the needs of families with respect to technologies, we can draw from the domestic HCI literature, which looks at how families incorporate interactive artifacts in their daily life. And so there's a lot of good knowledge from that community. And then more recently, we've been able to leverage the family informatics model proposed by Laura Pina and colleagues, which itself is inspired by lived informatics and personal informatics models, and tries to understand what does it mean for families to track and collaborate around home-based health technologies. And so that is the related work. There is a little bit of related work now emerging, looking at family sleep technologies specifically, and I'll get more into that a little bit later in the presentation. In order to do our study, we did a home-based interview with 10 families who had young children. We looked for families who had children that were beginning to sleep independently and facing challenges, and we identified families for whom sleep quality was a concern, but not a clinical issue. And in the interviews, we asked families about their daily schedules, any sleep challenges that they were experiencing, any distractors at night. And we also discussed any current sleep technologies that they use, and we showed them examples of technology that they could be using that's drawn from both the pervasive health research community and from commercial products. And then after the interview, families gave us a tour of their houses and or homes, and showed us their sleep practices and the technologies that they're currently using. And then throughout the interview data collection process, every couple of interviews, we would meet as a research team to try and understand what themes were emerging and where we might want to probe more. And then we conducted a more fuller thematic analysis after the interviews were completed. And as a result of this analysis, we found some themes across 3 stages of nightly sleep. And we've called those bedtime forever, sleeping soundly, and waking. And I will briefly go through each one of these. So anyone who knows kids or who has kids knows that bedtime is this simultaneously magic and terrifying time for families. Families told us that this was really the most critical time in their day when they could bond as a family. But they also reported that setting and sticking to regular bedtimes for everyone, but particularly for younger kids, was a real challenge. And so families talked to us about a number of different ways that they were trying to manage this situation. And there were two main solutions here. The first one was trying to manage daily activities. So you see in the up top here, there's a little trampoline. This is from a family that tried to encourage the kids to do bounce or jump minutes in order to sort of get their energy out before going to sleep. We also saw, I think every family or close to it provided a transitional object for their children. This is a concept that's quite well known in the developmental research community. That's your little stuffed animal or your animal friend or your stuffed friend who is able to go to sleep with you as a child so that you don't feel like you're going to sleep alone, but you're not relying on your parents or other family members to go to sleep with you. And this was a key tactic that families tried in order to make bedtime happen more smoothly. Another challenge that families experienced was sleeping soundly during the night. So for children, threats to a good night's sleep included bedwetting, nightmares, and other challenges related to their transition to independence. And for adults, caring for children was the main threat to their sleep. It didn't seem to affect their bedtime specifically, but it definitely affected sleeping soundly, and as we'll see later, it definitely affected waking. But parents and other adults in the household also faced challenges not relating to the kids at this time, especially relating to co-sleeping. We had several cases where either the parents had schedule conflicts, for example, one parent needed to wake up much earlier than the other, or sleep challenges. So one parent was a chronic snorer and actually ended up sleeping in a different bedroom just so that the other parent could get a good night's sleep. So this points to some of the solutions that families tried to work on. They tried to adjust environmental factors, finding the right kind of temperature for sleep. And so on the right here, you see a combination thermostat and nightlight that can help parents figure out, is the child's room really the temperature that we think it is? And other things such as noise machines. A lot of families used humidifiers when their children were very young, but the humidifiers produced a soothing white noise, and they continued to use that even though they didn't need the humidifier anymore. And then also some light monitoring just to diagnose problems, but again, that was more sort of like checking in on the child, very manual. In terms of waking, the primary challenge here was young kids who really want to wake up and get the day started much earlier than their parents would like to. And again, this will be a familiar challenge. But looking at it through the pervasive health context might be useful here. So on the top left, you see an example of a clock that families used, and we saw variants of this in many of the households, especially designed for prenumerate children. So this clock, and this is a common refrain, includes a feature where the clock changes color when it is okay to go wake up your parents, to try and get that example of there are times that are too early and there are times that are just right on time. There were also, I talked about briefly before, these schedule conflicts and work shift related challenges. To manage those, we saw some creative examples. So there was one couple where one parent needed to wake up much earlier than the other, and so that parent put their phone underneath the pillow and set their alarm to vibrate so that they could have an alarm that was just for them. And we also saw some regular rules and rituals. So for example, on the right-hand side here, you see the sign that says, "You wake him, you take him." This is for a child who, despite everything the parents tried, always woke up at 5 a.m. And so one of the things that they were trying was to make sure that anyone passing by the bedroom was not causing sleep disruptions to the child. So those are some of the challenges and experiences that families reported to us about their sleep practices. We also talked to them about their perceptions of current sleep trackers, because we didn't see an awful lot of use of sleep tracking technology. I think we had one parent that was wearing a Fitbit watch, for example. And one of the things that came through very strongly was this deep skepticism about the value of tracking. And so, actually, from our last interview, the father in this interview really put it well, I think. He said, "I think I know why I wake up in the night. So I think I'm just probably not super interested in the data." And so we often think about personal informatics as providing value through allowing people to interrogate their data. But for these families, the family level sleep concerns, the challenge was not identifying problems. The challenge was trying to come up with solutions. And another thing that they talked to us about was, again and again, this concept started coming across of intrusiveness. They didn't want technologies to be intrusive into their family life. And this may reflect the nature of the urban and suburban households in the Indianapolis area. But there was this idea that we feel bombarded by technology and we want to limit our screen time. So these limitations could be something that is disheartening. When we heard families sort of dismissing the idea of tracking technologies, we were a little worried. But actually, in combining these concerns with the opportunities that we talked about in terms of bedtime, sleeping, and waking, there are a number of opportunities for pervasive health technologies and actually a pretty promising future. So one thing that we can gather from this is, rather than focusing just on tracking, pervasive health technologies could really support family bedtime rituals by tracking and regulating activity sequences. So tracking the number of books you read, setting rules, making it more playful, and being able to do so in an unobtrusive way. That's a real strength of pervasive technologies. We could also encourage children's independence through augmented transitional objects. Turning a transitional object into an Internet of Things device might be a really promising way of addressing these issues. And in fact, Anna has continued to think through this, and this on the right, the Pillow Night Buddy is one such augmented transitional object idea that we're thinking through. Providing comfort at night could be a real opportunity for IoT devices that are screenless and networked and can respond to situations in a pre-programmed way. And finally, promoting daytime habits, and we know an awful lot about how pervasive health technologies could support that, would be a really interesting approach to helping with sleep. And we could leverage a lot of what we know about daytime activities to promote daytime activities that support proper sleep. There's also some really exciting research opportunities from this research. Like I said before, tracking is only part of the story. And families talk to us again and again about processes that really mattered to them. So things that were important to them were reading bedtime stories or taking baths, ways of handling nightmares, breastfeeding challenges, chasing the elusive perfect nap. These are all about processes and supporting processes rather than tracking or individual events. And there's been some promising developments since we conducted this research. Like I said before, sort of simultaneously with this study, Laura Pina and colleagues at the University of Washington have been working on their system Dreamcatcher, and they used a family systems framework from family therapy to help inform this design. And in my own current work, I am using a different set of theories also from family therapy, the theories of family resilience, to try and understand how we could design technologies around family processes. And this seems to me like a really good opportunity for pervasive health technologies to make a contribution through screenless devices that are networked and attuned to be pervasive in families' lives rather than ubiquitous in their perception. And that we could really think more deeply about what does it mean to create a family process informatics. And I can tell from the other research that's going on now that this is going to be a promising area. And hopefully this study helps provide some evidence for the value of thinking in this way. So just to overview, in this study we were looking at getting enough high quality sleep as a family and the role that technology could play play in that. And we conducted an interview study with families with young kids to try and understand these opportunities more. And we provided some design dimensions and implications for family-based sleep technologies. I also want to finish up by thanking you for watching and thanking our participating families and the National Science Foundation, which provided support for the analysis phase of this work. And I want to thank you for watching. Sleep well.